I would say first and foremost, create independent media here in Hungary and really across Europe. I think it's absolutely necessary. Another thing is to not pay careful attention to the rest of the media, but to do your own thing, to put everything aside and just start investigating. We're talking here specifically about the Soros networks, to really peel back the layers of the onion by looking at who they are, who's on the board of directors, where they're getting their money from, where the money is going, and you'll start to see a common theme. And you'll start to see at the end of the day that it's just multiple tentacles of an octopus. And then you chop one arm off and another one grows back. But you have to define and expose those arms and then also the larger picture of who and what they are. Yeah, I mean, he's first of all financing the boycott movement around the world against Israel. When it comes to within Israel itself, you look at, for example, the illegal immigrants who have already come into the country. He's financing some of the movements that are working with these illegal immigrants in order they call themselves like immigrant rights groups or legal defense funds of illegal immigrants. But you look at the baseline of what they're trying to achieve, and it is to delegitimize, ultimately really to destroy the Jewish state. And also he's financing something, or he's tied to financing of one of the most virulent anti-Israel organizations. It's called the New Israel Fund. It's a Soros-financed group that itself funds a who's who of radical anti-Israel organizations that are also sort of anti-Western. They call themselves the New Israel Fund, and this really highlights some of the ingenious marketing of the radical left. They use the phraseology, these catchwords, peace, security, or even in this case, the name of the country, the New Israel Fund, in order to project something that they are not. George Soros is funding anti-Semitic, anti-Israel organizations. Is to take people who criticize Soros, one of the primary funders of anti-Israel leftist organizations around the world, and then say that legitimate criticism of Soros, who's attempting to undermine the sovereignty of numerous nations at the same time, that seems to be the goal of these smaller organizations that he finances. And to say that this legitimate criticism that even the Israeli prime minister, by the way, has in a very strong way, is anti-Semitic, while Soros himself is financing anti-Semitic organizations that attempt to delegitimize, again, basically destroy ultimately the Jewish state. That to me is really a 180 inversion of reality. It's taking reality and turning it on its face. Soros is the one who needs to be called out for financing anti-Semitic, anti-Israel organizations. I think that anti-Semitism itself exists, absolutely, on both sides, but on one side probably a little bit more than the other, or a lot more, given actually that the left seems to have this alliance with anti-Israel, anti-Semitic elements. Islamists, the Muslim Brotherhood in the past, you look in America and you look at the left-wing, now Democrat socialist organizations openly, or even the Democrat Party in America, they couldn't even pass a resolution specifically condemning anti-Semitism. The left has a very real anti-Semitism problem around the world, and it's something that they not only don't recognize, they not only fail to condemn, but they use that term to smear their opponents, and to me that really is a disservice to actual anti-Semitism. When they're taking words, terms that have a very powerful, very important, very strong meaning, like anti-Semitism, like racism, like xenophobia, like Islamophobia, like homophobia, and they're using that to smear political opponents, to me that really minimizes the meaning of those words. And that's a real detriment to people who actually face those kinds of things. Migration, on the one hand, you have a humanitarian issue in the grand scheme of things ideologically, but then you look at what's actually happening, and countries can't destroy themselves, even if it is in order to save other people. In this case, I don't know how much that is really happening, and how many of these migrants are sort of taking advantage of the fact that they can come to Europe and are looking for handouts or a better life or whatever it is. And then you have an element that is coming with a very different and very dangerous ideology. So, I mean, first, Europe is committing suicide here if they don't turn off the flow right now. And the second thing is how to contend with a very different kind of ideology that is already here. And to me, I really do fear in some of these countries for the future of Europe. I'm asking myself, is it already too late? I don't know. I think you can certainly learn, though, from the Israeli model of building fences, of building walls. Walls work, but then also of turning off the larger flow, because countries simply can't afford at this point to literally change their very character and maybe even destroy themselves in order to under the guise of migration. I think you can learn from Israel, and I would hope in the future that you can learn from the Trump administration. Let's see what they're going to do with the massive emergency at the southern border. It's an emergency. Americans recognize this. The Democrat Party doesn't as much. And I think Trump absolutely recognizes this. And let's see what he does in the coming months with his presidency.